Welcome everyone. Today on this Tuesday we are having an overview of just exactly how things are looking in Midnight when it comes to a very relevant part of the purging of add-ons for the next expansion. I guess the three most important things having to be looked at when it comes to your UI in Midnight are what is going to be replacing weak auras, what is going to be replacing your raid and party frames, and then what is going to be replacing your nameplates. And today we're looking at the change of nameplates. I'm going to let you have the judgment of how are they looking right now in the alpha of Midnight after you see all the changes for yourself. And we're doing this by looking at a very good recently added blog post of Zephyrus. Zephyrus is one of the players who is collabing together with Jandiz to make one of the most popular plater profiles you have seen in streams, videos, or even played yourself, right? Very familiar at this point. Color coding, for example, in keys you see like the blue, the light blue for the casters, the purple for the priority NPCs, or other super useful things like the interrupt casting colors of the mobs, etc, etc. And he has something to say about this. And the reason why we are making this in video format is because, let's be honest, you guys are not going to be reading through all of this by yourself. You need to be spoon-fed exactly what is changing here for two different reasons. Number one, you have the attention span of a goldfish. Number two, even if you didn't, you cannot read. So you need someone else to do it for you. Now, to starters, as a side note, Blizzard's fights against the stacking of nameplates is still not won. This is a fight that has been going down for quite a while, and even when you used Plater, you still had, some issues in trying to keep these things straight and even so that you could actually click these nameplates while you were fighting. In the alpha, it's not exactly getting much better. These things are still having problems being fixed. We can just assume that it's not going to be nearly as terrible as you see it as you see whatever is going down here in the alpha, and this will be fixed. Now, one of the biggest problems that was immediately recognizable in the alpha was the ability to customize the unit name. Now, it's already not possible in retail to do any kind of customization by yourself. You need add-ons. Add-ons can rename NPCs by their name, the unit name, individually. And obviously, in Midnight, you cannot customize names. You also cannot customize names at all surrounding these two infos, which have now been put into the secret black box of the API of Blizzard that add-ons cannot touch. This creates some classic problems, as being pointed out. This means that every time you go in Floodgate, you will read in your nameplates Ventureco, or in Echo Maldani a bunch of Wastelander, because they will not be able to be renameable. So all you will read is just the initial title of the mob. You cannot simply rename this guy to Caster, this guy to Melee, or to Charger. They will all have the same prefix that Blizzard likes to put in their dungeons. This is still not being addressed in any way in the alpha. You don't have any kind of ability to rename these things, and Blizzard, even if they were to say maybe we can rename them if you begin a Mythic plus Keystone, for example, they still haven't been doing it. This is a minor one, especially as we actually are going to be getting a squish, a numbers squish in Midnight, but the ability to change the health values and the way they are being displayed, of course you can't in retail, and of course you can do it with add-ons right now, and you cannot now in Midnight. You can show the absolute value and the percentage values, but you cannot have any other changes because unit health max and unit health percent are still secret in the alpha. So you cannot change, for example, any of these numbers. They will return the effective number. You cannot change it. So you cannot change this, right? This 2.862k into 2.86 million. You cannot make the change. This will be uneditable in the alpha of Midnight with these nameplates. Now, when it comes to highlighting the player's current target, you do have it in Midnight. Right now, you have a slight highlight if you use the retail nameplates, and then you can, of course, change whatever you want in the highlighting of plate. You can change the border color, the scale of the nameplate you have clicked on your character, you are targeting on your character, and even the different texture, like change your target to be a purple health bar, for example, if it's your target. In Midnight, it's a very simple default thing. It just becomes brighter and larger. You cannot even change how much larger do you want it to be. It just stays always in this size and also with this border without any other option. Same goes for the ability to highlight the player's current focus target. For starters, you have no way of doing this in retail. You have same kind of customization in Plater. In Midnight, calling this highlighted would be can we even say this is being highlighted? Yes, in case you can squint properly, this would be the highlight of your focus. The difference between your focus and non-focus is this at the moment. That would be the difference at the moment in Midnight between a target that's being focused and someone who is not. Another one of the biggest ones we pointed out in the John Dee's Plater, one of the main QoL tools was this. The ability to get you to immediately visualize as you pull two different packs in Mythic Plus who are the casters. Who is the big HP guy you want to funnel, you want to focus, for example, and who are the irrelevant default baseline NPCs you don't care too much about, or even simply by looking at the size of the health bars, right? The smallies, the small guys you don't care too much about, you usually just AoE down, right? All of this. In retail right now, of course, you have zero ability to change the colors. You have full ability in Plater to do whatever you want with the colors of the nameplates. In Midnight, you have again zero options to change the color of the nameplates. This is one of the, at the moment, worst kind of downgrades going from the War Within to Midnight, losing the ability to have any kind of color spread of different kind of mobs compared to what we have right now in retail using Plater. One of the understandable suggestions done by Sefaris, since there is no way for you to individually recolor each NPC, each mob, Blizzard will never put that option in their default option window. It could be the one for them to manually tag different kind of mobs in Mythic Plus keys with different keywords such as boss, notable enemy, caster and non-caster, so they can at least recolor different kinds of mobs all at once. So give every caster mana, make every one of the dangerous casts you want to interrupt come from mobs with mana, put the mobs with mana under the caster category, and then allow you in the options to recolor the health bar of all casters, so that then you can recolor them to have something similar to what you had, for example, using a Plater profile. Same goes in terms of recolor, of course, when it comes to the color change based on threat. This is also currently not available and not working in Midnight. Now, in Midnight, you do have the ability to track auras, primarily of the player, on your nameplate. So obviously you are a dot class, you're a priest, a shadow priest, a feral druid, you want to be able to see your dots on the nameplates, right? So you do have, of course, the option right now on Plater. In Midnight, you do see the auras you apply on the nameplates of the target. However, add-ons can reorder the debuffs on the nameplate and can even change the location of different auras depending on which one you want. This is not a thing in Midnight. In Midnight, you don't have the option to reorder, and also you don't have the option to filter anything beyond being able to show my debuff, other players' debuffs. That's the only filter you have. Beyond that, all you see is just a list of debuffs all at once lining up on top of the nameplate or wherever you choose to put the debuffs. For example, if you compare this to right now using Plater, you can see I wanted to make, for example, Rip more visible, so I put it on the side and larger, and then I keep rake above the nameplate. Actually, recently I even decided to lose and remove trash altogether, because I don't care about seeing trash, since I will always have trash on my enemies, and having it show on my nameplate is just extra clutter. So this kind of customization won't be at the moment available in the Midnight nameplates. You just get to see the whole list of all of the debuffs you apply on the enemy. Even if, for example, as a rogue, you might not have cared for seeing the poisons you apply on the enemy, because you always do. They're always gonna be there. You don't care about seeing the debuff of your poison on the enemy. You don't have the ability to filter them out. Although not working nearly as well, Blizzard is adding some sort of ability to highlight a specific set of auras in some form that are going to be isolated from the other ones. This is essentially a bundle of auras put in the shared CC group, which includes things like, for example, stuns that will show on the mob's nameplate, similar to what you have already right now. Being able to see the AoE stuns, for example, that the group is putting on mobs is still going to be visible in Midnight, but you have no way, again worth mentioning, you have no way to customize this. Either this is on or it's off. You don't get to change it by yourself. Another one is the ability to change the unit name based on the aura presence, something that you can do with Plater but you cannot do in Midnight. A very simple change, like changing the color, whether it is the name or changing the color of the bar, changing the color of the border based on, for example, if you have a debuff on the enemy. In this case, that's Stalker's Mark, but it could be, for example, if you are a druid and you are spreading your rip as a feral druid, you want to recolor whoever you have ripped with a green border. That's obviously something you cannot do in Midnight. There is something extra, the ability to highlight Pandemic aura on nameplates, so the classic dot glows because you need to reapply it for max value with Pandemic. They did announce that they will be adding the cooldown manager with a Pandemic range. A red box will appear around the buff, or the debuff rather, so you will get this in Midnight. Another one of the things we mentioned was a pretty good QoL in your nameplates is the ability to change the scale of a nameplate. For example, smallies, the small guys that are kind of like fodder, you don't need to see them as big and thick as the more important mobs. Right now, you don't have any option in Midnight to change specific nameplates of specific kind of mobs. Which again, this would be solvable if Blizzard created tags for different mobs, such as small, medium, and big, or small, medium, and important, so that you could change the scale of each of those nameplates. Again, you cannot change the scale of the individual NPCs, the individual mobs, but at least if you put them into different groups, then you could at least edit the size of 2, 3, 4 different groups that Blizzard makes that will count most of the mobs taking part of Mythic Plus keys. Now, what has been added and changed the most in the alpha was the Castbar. The ability to show the name of the target is there in the alpha of Midnight. You also have the ability to show the name of a spell being cast, so you can change the spell name with the target name within the option in the Midnight alpha. However, the ability to show the remaining time until a cast finishes, for example, if you wanted to time something yourself as the cast finishes, let's say you're a healer, you are pre-casting a heal as the ability hits, you can't. You have to essentially just look at the bar filling up. If you wanted a timer, you can actually see the number of the spell timer. Of course, other things like the ability to show the name of the unit interrupting a cast, which is available in Plater, won't be there in Midnight. The ability to dynamically change the color of the cast bar is also obviously not gonna be there in Midnight. We have pointed out the example on Plater, right? Orange if your kick is on cooldown, so you have no way of stopping this, short of using a CC like a stun. This will go through if nobody else interrupts, or yellow if you know your kick is coming off cooldown. Either if your kick is already off cooldown anyways, or if it will be coming off cooldown in time for you to interrupt the ability. You have zero edit for this in the alpha. It will always look the very same yellow bar being cast by the enemy. Any kind of other special recoloring is the same, like the ability to indicate things like spell reflect being open and available, or even things like Prot Paladin's Avenger's Shield. There are mods that can recolor the Castbar purple for Prot Pal's, I guess, second interrupt. So not their normal rebuke interrupt, but their extra Avenger Shield, or in the case of Warriors for Spell Reflection. That's also not gonna be available in Midnight. Emphasis is also out of the window. The ability to put emphasis on set casts, either by picking up the spell ID or the name of the mobs, like for example Disrupting Shout. You want to suddenly grow the size of the enemy's nameplate, or flash the nameplate, or put a glow, a border glow around the cast, anything like that is not gonna be there in Midnight. You have the default option of Midnight, which is the highlighting of important casts. First of all, we already saw that the highlighting is very minimal. There are no other options to choose from other than ticking this, which is just a slight glow around the cast. You have no change to texture, no other change, and again, you cannot change the cast yourself. You cannot choose what you deem to be something that is important in a Mythic Plus key, for example. Other pretty good QoL in certain keys, like the ability to change, again, nameplates, in this case based on fixates. There is a good example here of the mines being small and tiny until they focus you, in which case they become big and lighter and easier to see, right? Because that's kind of the danger when you're being fixated. Obviously, you have no option for that in the alpha of Midnight. For something completely out of combat related, like the ability to indicate quest progress, you know, let's just go out of combat for a second. You can have add-ons be essentially syncing up with your plater nameplates and showing you, for example, quest progress next to mobs doing quests, right? Lighting up the lighter color of the health bar if they are quest related, for example, as well as showing you what you are trying to collect from this mob. For example, how many do you need? This is gone. Obviously, in Midnight, there's gonna be zero kind of, you know, synergy with this kind of quest progress tied to your nameplates in Midnight. The ability to hide nameplates, this is very good, was very good in multiple dungeons where there was a lot of extra clutter of irrelevant nameplates that you could manually just remove in Plater. This is using the classic example, for example, of something like the Under the Bridge random trash in Brackenide Hollow, which you could very simply remove to remove the clutter in Plater, and now it just looks like this in the Alpha of Midnight, because you have obviously zero way to edit these mobs. In Plater, you very simply open Plater, go to the mob's names, pick up Decaying Slime and choose to hide it, and in like 3 clicks it goes away. In here, you have no way to actually change this. Continuing the QoL Purge, the ability to indicate whether a unit is below the possibly dynamic execute threshold, depending on your spec, of course. In Plater, you obviously have the ability to pick up the execute range to show you when you can, for example, execute as a warrior or a shadow priest or whatever. That is also completely gone in Midnight. There is no support for this kind of feature whatsoever. Same goes for other tiny QoL, like the percentage-based encounter-like events on your nameplates. So, you know, fights like Rashanan, the percentage-based mechanics, or fights like these required to break the villagers' mind control, essentially, in Mists of Tir-Naseed. The different kind of intermission breakpoints on bosses, like at 70% health or 50% health or 40% health, knowing when it's gonna happen, that's gonna be gone in Midnight. Same goes for the mechanics, not just health based but energy based. So energy based encounters where mobs are about to do something based on their growing energy on the nameplates. You will no longer have any kind of thresholds, because as a reminder, again, not just unit health is being hidden, is being put secret on your frames, but also unit power max, and unit power type is now unchangeable, unmodifiable through add-ons. So these cannot be tinkered with, these kind of helpers in your nameplates. Other even tinier, even smaller QoLs, like the ability to indicate on the nameplate how long a unit will live for. So very simple. You could have scripts that were essentially calculating your DPS, your group DPS, next to the HP of the mob, and then essentially tell you this mob dies in 30 seconds. This was, very niche use for you to knowing if it was worth, for example, to sending another round of cooldowns, or if the boss or the mob was going to die fast enough for you to not need that. Obviously, this kind of, extra precise calculation is not gonna be available in Midnight either. And to finish, these are all of the removed CVARs, conditionals being removed in Midnight Alpha. So things that you can no longer use to tinker with your nameplates, and you will no longer have the ability to use in your plater scripts, in your plater mods, obviously because plater won't work at all whatsoever. But it's not that they will not work in your mod, they won't be added as part of your options in the Midnight Alpha set of customization for your nameplates. So with this, you have the recap of everything that has been changed going from the War Within to the Midnight Alpha up to now when it comes to nameplates, when it comes to the changes of what is being removed compared to what we currently have in live, essentially, and what we can expect to essentially not have with the release of Midnight. Obviously, we still have the copium that it's a few months away from release. Many of these changes can continue to be iterated upon and get more and more improvements, but obviously, as it was also pointed out, we shouldn't expect any kind of parity between what we used to have with Plater and what we will have with the default UI settings of Blizzard, especially anything that has to do with personal customization. Unique customization of single entities is completely gone, regardless if we think it will improve massively come the actual release of the expansion. That will not be added. So the idea that in this like old, outdated, super janky set of options, Blizzard would also add the option for you to edit individual nameplates of individual mobs or individual castbars or what have you won't be there, no matter how long we wait for the changes in the alpha and then in the beta. That will not be a thing. The best that we can hope for, as we said, was the hope that Blizzard sort of tags multiple enemies in a single category, like small mobs, medium mobs, big mobs, or notable mob, caster mob, melee mob, assassin mob, so that you can then go in the options and tick each individual kind of mob and change their nameplate, their castbar, or whatever, the size of the nameplate to affect all of the group. But that's the best you can hope for at the moment. So as I said, I'm gonna leave you the judgment of exactly how does this look for now, how all of these changes are currently racking up compared to what you have been playing in retail, assuming you are playing with any kind of nameplate add-on and not with the retail version of the nameplates. And also, it was good to keep track of this so that we can then come back here a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, and then compare exactly how many of these things that are missing or are not even remotely as good as what we currently have in retail, how many of these have been improved on, how much more QoL have we gotten to the nameplates of the Midnight Alpha. So for now, we're gonna leave this here as a benchmark, this blog from Seferis going down, listing all of the changes currently live in the Midnight Alpha when it comes to nameplates. and I'm going to leave you with your own judgment on how these things are looking for the next expansion. For this now, on this Tuesday, we can now leave each other. We are starting the goodbyes by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone else who's been supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I don't know, it's like we stopped getting cold. We had this temperature a month ago. It's been a month, we're almost in November, and we're still not that cold.